says it may ramp up use of plastic bottles and raise prices due to President Trump's 25% tariff on aluminum imports. The beverage company currently imports aluminum for cans from Canada, though it could shift to look for domestic aluminum sources.
Drinks in the US are made by American workers in American factories, largely all with American inputs, and the same would be true if you took Brazil or anywhere else. It's a very profoundly operationally local business.
The consumer, because we heard from other staples so far this quarter, this season, Procter & Gamble, your competitor Pepsi, they cited uncertainty with the consumer and how that's led to trade downs and different decisions.
Coca-Cola, one of the most iconic American brands known for its innovation, cultural influence, and global presence, is reportedly planning to relocate its headquarters and operations outside the United States. This unprecedented move, driven by aggressive U.S. tariffs on aluminum and other essential materials under President Donald Trump's administration, signals a major shift in the global business landscape. Led by CEO James Quincy, this decision highlights the increasing difficulties multinational companies face when navigating protectionist economic policies. The implications, financial, cultural, geopolitical, and operational, are vast as Coca-Cola begins to distance itself from its American origins. At the heart of this move is a broader change in economic policy under President Trump, whose administration has implemented sweeping tariffs on foreign imports in an effort to protect U.S. industries and push for economic self-reliance. However, these protectionist measures have triggered retaliatory tariffs from key trade partners like Canada and China, escalating into a trade war. For a company like Coca-Cola, which relies heavily on a finely tuned global supply chain, this environment has become increasingly unsustainable. Coca-Cola's production depends on a complex web of international resources: aluminum for cans, sweeteners from Latin America, flavorings from Asia, and cross-border machinery and marketing services. The imposition of tariffs has disrupted these supply lines, increasing costs and adding uncertainty. Aluminum prices, vital for producing billions of cans annually, have spiked due to U.S. import duties and retaliatory tariffs. Similarly, the cost of imported sweeteners and flavorings has surged, putting pressure on profit margins. Absorbing these rising costs long-term could lead to reduced profitability or the need to raise prices, both risky outcomes that might alienate customers. As CEO James Quincy pointed out, trying to operate from a country deeply involved in tariff conflicts places Coca-Cola at a competitive disadvantage. This reality is pushing the company to seek a more stable and predictable trade environment elsewhere. Coca-Cola's potential departure from its longtime home in Atlanta, Georgia, where it has been based since the late 19th century, is more than just a logistical shift. It represents a symbolic break from the brand's deep-rooted American identity. The famous red and white logo, recognized around the world, has long stood as a symbol of American entrepreneurial spirit, innovation, and cultural influence. Its marketing, often infused with themes of freedom and prosperity, has played a role in promoting American values abroad. But now, this exit suggests the United States may no longer offer the economic stability and global appeal it once did for multinational corporations. The broader economic impact could be significant. Coca-Cola employs tens of thousands directly and supports millions more through its vast network of distributors, retailers, and service providers. Its departure could prompt other global companies, especially those in industries like technology, automotive, pharmaceuticals, and finance, to reconsider their presence in the U.S. Meanwhile, in the broader context of inflation and supply chain tensions, Coca-Cola has taken a strategic approach with its own suppliers. Instead of abrupt price increases, the company favors long-term relationships and stable supply agreements. They secure long-term pricing contracts and employ hedging strategies to smooth out market fluctuations. As a result, they're able to avoid the kind of sudden price hikes that have recently caused tensions between other brands and retailers, such as the public dispute between Pepsi and Carrefour, which resulted in Pepsi products being pulled from shelves. Coca-Cola's situation highlights a larger narrative: the growing tension between domestic economic policies and the needs of globally integrated businesses. As protectionism rises, companies built on international collaboration and supply chains may be forced to make bold moves to ensure their survival and competitiveness. Coca-Cola's potential relocation could send ripples through real estate markets, employment patterns, and domestic supply chains. It also casts doubt on the effectiveness of long-standing U.S. incentives like tax breaks and subsidies that have traditionally encouraged companies to stay rooted in the country. In an era defined by trade wars and economic nationalism, lawmakers may need to rethink these tools and strategies. Beyond its economic impact, Coca-Cola's move is poised to reshape the geopolitical landscape of the corporate world. Early reports suggest the company is considering relocating to European countries such as Germany, the Netherlands, or Switzerland, nations that offer strong logistics infrastructure, favorable trade agreements, and political stability. A move like this would help Coca-Cola shield itself from US-centered trade turbulence while strengthening its foothold in the European market. However, the shift is not without its challenges. Operating in a new host country introduces political, cultural, and logistical complexities. European countries often enforce stricter environmental and labor regulations, which could push Coca-Cola to ramp up its sustainability and compliance efforts. Alternatively, relocating to less regulated regions like Singapore or the UAE may reduce regulatory hurdles, but could trigger criticism from activists concerned about transparency, labor rights, or environmental accountability. Either way, the move would mark a cultural turning point for a company so deeply woven into the American story. For generations, Coca-Cola has symbolized the American way of life. It was a companion to U.S. soldiers in World War II, a symbol of freedom during the Cold War, and a mainstay in American advertising and public consciousness. Its departure calls into question whether national identity can still override economic pragmatism. This could trigger disappointment or even backlash from American consumers who take pride in homegrown brands. Globally, the move suggests that the U.S. may no longer be seen as the dependable economic partner it once was, potentially diminishing its soft power. Relocating a corporation of Coca-Cola's size is no small feat. The company must unravel a deeply embedded U.S. presence, which includes more than 50 facilities such as headquarters, R&D labs, distribution hubs, and bottling plants. The legal implications are enormous. Coca-Cola's legal teams will need to comb through thousands of contracts, leases, and vendor agreements. Data security also becomes a pressing concern. Transferring proprietary formulas, marketing algorithms, and customer data to servers abroad introduces significant technical and cybersecurity risks. Furthermore, the company will have to navigate new regulatory landscapes, whether it's Europe's stringent data privacy laws or local labor codes in whichever country it chooses. The human impact is equally profound. Thousands of US-based employees may face job losses or uncertain futures. Severance packages, while offering some relief, won't ease the emotional weight of losing jobs tied to a brand long considered a cornerstone of American employment. The company's departure may also affect its long-standing partnerships with U.S. universities, which have supported research in food science, sustainability, and marketing. Funding cuts could disrupt academic programs, research pipelines, and community initiatives that have benefited from Coca-Cola's backing for decades. The brand itself must now undergo a transformation. Will Coca-Cola adopt a cosmopolitan, global identity, or will it align with regional cultures in its new base? This isn't a minor consideration. Brand identity influences consumer trust, investor sentiment, and regulatory goodwill. A misstep in this transition could hurt market performance, especially as competitors like PepsiCo continue to highlight their U.S. roots to appeal to patriotic consumers. At the same time, smaller craft soda companies and regional bottlers may seize this opportunity to capture more market share. Innovation is another area set to evolve. With Coca-Cola's research operations shifting away from U.S. institutions, the company will need to establish new partnerships, perhaps with European universities, Asian tech incubators, or Middle Eastern innovation hubs. This could inspire product lines tailored to local tastes, less sugary beverages for Europe, botanical infusions for Asian markets, or electrolyte-rich drinks for hot climates. Finally, Coca-Cola's global supply chain ethics will come under scrutiny, especially in highly regulated regions like the European Union, where companies must audit their environmental and human rights impacts. Consumers and regulators alike will be watching closely to see how the company handles this next chapter. From a financial perspective, Coca-Cola's relocation comes with short-term costs, but carries long-term strategic advantages. While the initial expense is significant, investors have responded with cautious optimism. Many recognize that operating in countries with more stable trade policies could ultimately protect Coca-Cola's growth trajectory and profitability. Listing on international stock exchanges, such as Frankfurt or Tokyo, could further diversify the company's investor base by attracting sovereign wealth funds and pension systems that prioritize sustainability and strong governance practices. The move also opens the door for competitors. PepsiCo may use this opportunity to reinforce its identity as a proudly American brand, appealing to patriotic consumers. Meanwhile, smaller and more localized beverage companies may benefit from a growing consumer preference for regional or niche products. With tariffs increasing costs and limiting product availability, the U.S. beverage market may experience rising prices, fewer options on store shelves, and more generic branding. Coca-Cola's exit could also empower countries that support free trade, as they position themselves as safe havens for global business. For nations that become Coca-Cola's new home, the company's presence could offer strategic leverage in future trade negotiations with the United States. In this way, corporate decisions begin to blur with national interests, highlighting the expanding role of the private sector in shaping international diplomacy. For U.S. policymakers, Coca-Cola's departure is a clear warning sign. It may spark new debates around trade policy, corporate tax structures, and the country's overall global competitiveness. Efforts to retain other corporate giants may prompt legislative changes aimed at making the U.S. more business-friendly. At the same time, think tanks, advocacy groups, and political leaders will seize on this moment to push arguments both for and against protectionist policies. Public perception is also likely to evolve, as consumers increasingly question where products come from, how they are made, and the values they represent in a world that is demanding greater transparency. As Coca-Cola enters this transformative phase, it steps into a dynamic, borderless marketplace where success will depend on adaptability, cultural understanding, and strategic innovation. The company must realign its leadership structure, governance models, and research efforts to meet the demands of its new environment. Every aspect of its business, from workforce logistics to supply chain strategy to brand positioning, will undergo significant change. These shifts will send ripple effects across global financial markets, influence consumer behavior, and even alter geopolitical relationships. This isn't just a major business decision, it's a defining moment in the story of modern capitalism. Coca-Cola's departure from the US challenges long-held assumptions about corporate loyalty and national identity. It forces a deeper reflection on the balance between staying rooted in one country and pursuing efficiency and stability on a global scale. As Coca-Cola begins writing this new chapter, the world is watching closely. Aware that the exit of such an iconic American company marks a larger shift in how international business operates, the story is far from over. Its long-term consequences will shape public discourse, inform policy decisions, and influence corporate strategies for years to come in an increasingly interconnected global economy.